DreAllDay.com.
What up, everybody? Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Welcome to Q&A number 57. Q&A, how this works, for those who don't know, is I go through all the comments and questions from the previous week's Q&A video, which was 56. I'm going to read off those comments and questions and respond to them in this video, and this video will become Q&A 57. Then I'll do the exact same thing for the next one and the next one, as long as I keep getting quality questions. If the questions start to get bad, or people start asking me dumb shit over and over again, then we'll discontinue the Q&A. But for now, y'all been asking me good questions, so hopefully that streak continues. And let's get right into it without any wasted time. I'm sure everything that I would mention up front, I'm going to end up mentioning in answering these questions anyway, so there's no need for me to say it up front. So the first question is from Mike Payne. And Mike Payne says, whatever happened to Phil that you played ball with, and do you still keep in touch with him? I don't know who Phil is you're referring to. Maybe he's talking about Phil I mentioned in my first book, Buy a Game. I don't really know what happened to him, so that answers the second question. Do I keep in touch with him? No, not really. Next, Ahmed Masood says, have you ever smoked or drank alcohol before? Yeah, I've tried both, neither in excess, but yes, I've tried both. Terran Ivy says, I would hoop him up LBS. I don't even know what that means. I guess hoop him up means you would beat somebody in basketball, but if you guys say it in the comments, then it means you probably wouldn't do it. Next question. B Baller says, you think it's better to be carried by a good team or to be one of the better players on a weak team? Well, you could be a combination of both, B Baller. You could be a good player and play on a good team. I don't think, why would you want to choose one or the other? I think the best option would be a good player on a team that is also successful. Next, Omar Gods. I know I didn't get that last name right, but Omar says, I'm in my first year of high school. My dream is to get to the NBA. The problem is I live in Morocco, and we ain't that rich to afford college fees. So what should I do to make it? I really need some advice. Well, Omar, you're in your first year of high school. If you want to make it to the NBA, aside from the fees for college, what you would need is to be good enough to actually play in college, which means you need to play well where you are, which is in high school. So you're thinking about how you're going to pay for college, which is something that happens when you're around age 18, 17, 18 years old, or 19, and you're in your first year of high school, which means you're, what, 13, 14, or 15. So you're skipping a whole gap of years right there that if you don't do the right thing in that gap, then what happens after the gap won't even matter. So what you need to do is focus on where you are, focus on being the best player you can be right now in high school, and then worry about college when it's time for college. So you cross that bridge when you get there, is the cliche that we like to use. So when you're talking about paying for college and things like that, you might come to a situation between now and then where you won't have to pay for college. Maybe you end up with a scholarship. Maybe you go from high school to go play in professional ball somewhere instead of even going to college. Who knows? You don't know what's going to happen then. So what you should focus on is right now, because if you don't do your job now, then things you're talking about for the future 3-4 years down the line, they won't even come to fruition. You won't even have to make that decision, because if you don't perform, then it's not even a question. Next is Dalton Lisa. Says, what's your favorite thing to do when you have one guy on you? There is no favorite thing to do. It all depends on the game situation, because if you think about it, if you have one person guarding you in a game, I'm assuming he's talking about a game of basketball, because he doesn't actually say, but if you're playing in a game and you have a guy who's a lot smaller than you guarding you, there's one thing you might do. And if you have a guy who's a lot bigger than you guarding you, then there's something completely different you might do. So you probably wouldn't have one thing that you always are going to try to do no matter who's guarding you, because you had to base it on the situation. Just like if you're in school and somebody asks you a question, it depends on who's asking you that question, the way you're going to respond to that, right? If it's your best friend, or if it's your teacher, or if it's the principal, or if it's somebody you never met, or a girl you like, you might respond to that exact same question differently in all four circumstances. It's the same thing in basketball. Next, JCTV says, what teams have surprised you so far this season? And again, he doesn't say what teams he's referring to, so I assume he's talking about NBA teams, because that's the only basketball team game I watch. I don't watch high school. I don't watch college. Surprised me. If I had to say one team, I'd just say the Atlanta Hawks. I knew they were a solid team, like a team that'll make the playoffs, but I don't think anybody saw them going undefeated in the month of January in that win streak, which was, I don't know if it was 18 or 19 games that got broken by the Pelicans this week, but then they went right back to winning when they beat the Wizards. So the Atlanta Hawks have surprised me a lot. I'm interested to see how they do in the postseason once that comes around. Next question. Richard III says, what's your mindset going into a game? Richard, I think somebody asked me this exact same question last week, and it really just depends on the game situation. But you can go back to last week's video and see that, because I did address that question. Keelan Carey says, who will win a one-on-one in their prime, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, if they were playing each other in this one-on-one? I would go with Michael Jordan. A Greek Dancer says, Dre, this offseason I'm going to make the transition from the post to the wing. What drills should I be doing to make this transition? Well, you're asking the wrong question, the Greek Dancer. The first question you have to ask yourself is, what skills do you want to have? Just because you say you're going from the post to the wing doesn't mean automatically there are certain drills or certain moves or certain skills that you must have. You had to figure out what is your game going to be. The post and the wing are just positions. They're just names. That doesn't mean that you had to play a certain way. If you look at basketball right now, let's say Kyle Korver is a wing player, and you also have LeBron James as a wing player, and they play completely different styles of basketball, but they both are wing positions, quote unquote. So it doesn't mean just because you play the wing that you have to play a certain way, because LeBron has certain things that he does on a regular basis, and Kyle Korver has certain things that he does, and they're completely different things, but they're both very pivotal players to their specific teams. Now, of course, we could say LeBron James is a much more talented player. He has much more of an impact, but Kyle Korver is a starter on a team that's very good. So you had to figure out what your game is. It's not about what I need to do because I gave myself this title. It's about what is my game going to be. Once you figure that out, once you know what your game is, then you'll know what skills you need to have for that game. And once you know that, then you can go through this library of content that I have here on YouTube and figure out what you need to work on. And if you need a specific program of things you want to work on, and this is even better, since you want to become a wing player, ask yourself, is there a certain player whose game you want to mold your game after? Are there certain specific skills of any certain player who you want to say, okay, I like to take that skill from this guy or this skill from that guy? We have that covered at my website, hoophandbook.com, where we had an NBA signature workout program. So you can pick the player whose game you want to mold your skills after, and maybe it's more than one player. You might not want to be exactly like one guy. You might want a couple things from this guy and a couple things from this guy and maybe one or two things from some other guy. You can get those programs and adapt their skills. Doesn't mean you're going to play just like them, because no two players are going to ever play exactly alike, but you can take their skills and add it to your game. So the first question anyway to answer for you, a Greek Dancer, is what is your game going to be? The position does not determine your game. You determine your game. Henry Piao says, do you use a foam roller and what are the benefits of it? Yes, I do use a foam roller, Henry. What are the benefits of a foam roller? Well, it depends on how it gets used, but what a foam roller does, I'll tell you what it does, is that it gets the knots out of your muscles. So if you have tight muscles or you get knots in your muscles, if you're a person who works out a lot, and that can be any type of working out, running, lifting, basketball, any other sport that you want to name, it helps get the knots out of the muscles. So that's what the foam roller does. Now, whether that's a benefit for you or not, that's really up to you to decide. You would have to actually use it to find out. Next is John Legs. Says, Dre, I'm a freshman in high school. I excelled in tryouts. On the freshman team, I get lots of playing time, but on the varsity, I don't get as much. Which team do you think I should join? Well, John, I think you need to figure out which team you should join. You know the situation. You know yourself. You know the players on both teams. You know the coaches on both teams, and you also know what your goals are. I don't know the answers to any of those four questions. Only you do. I don't know you. I don't know your situation. I don't know the players. I don't know the coaches. And I don't know your goals. But you know all five of those things. So you are much better qualified to answer that question than I am. Next is the Nuggets. It says, Dre, how come I'm so bad when I play games with people, but when I'm practicing with myself, I feel like I can destroy? Do you have any tips? I enjoy your videos. Yes, you can watch the video that I put out about 3 weeks ago called How to Play Basketball as Good as You Practice Basketball. So watch that video and it will address your question in detail and exactly as you asked it. Next question. Ninja here videos. He says he has a sports hernia / rupture in his groin. That doesn't sound pleasant. Now, he can still play basketball, but his defense is not the same. Should he just start rehabbing? If so, what kind of exercises should he do for his core? Well, first of all, neither I nor anyone in the comments or anywhere else on YouTube is qualified to answer that question. What you need to do is go see a doctor. Now, since you know you have a sports hernia and a rupture in your groin, that means you probably got that diagnosis from a qualified physician, and you need to go back to them and ask them what you can do and what you can't do. And that person will give you a qualified answer. You don't want to mess around just doing random things and see what works and what doesn't work with an injury to your body like that, because once any part of your body is permanently damaged, you can't go buy another one. It's not like money. It's not like clothes. It's not like a basketball. You can go replace it with another one. You need to go get that done and get it done right from someone who's qualified to answer that question. I'm not that person. Next, Michael Patterson says, what did you do Tuesday since it was your birthday? And yes, this past Tuesday was my birthday, so he said happy birthday. Well, thank you. What did I do? Business as usual is what I did. Next, Low Key P says, do you think calf raises are effective, or would you recommend a better home calf workout? Thanks. Well, Low Key P, it depends on how you define the word effective. Sometimes people ask me questions all the time and they use these relative words like effective, good, harder, better. Those are all relative. So you had to quantify what you mean by effective. And once you quantify it, you don't have to bring it back to me to keep answering the same question. Once you quantify what it means, then you can go do some calf raises, and then you can measure the results of those calf raises against your definition of effective, and then you'll have answered your own question. Next, iPad Man 2158 says, what were my initial thoughts on Kevin Durant not being named a starter, although he might fill in for Kobe Bryant? But there were no initial thoughts. The starters are not named. The starters are voted for. So Kevin Durant didn't win enough votes to be a starter. So I didn't have any initial thoughts. I mean, you could see the votes. He didn't get it, and that was just all there was to it. Next, Martin Ivanov says, do you watch other YouTubers? If yes, who are they? Thanks. Keep the ball handling vids coming. And no, I actually don't. I rarely watch any YouTube videos at all. Next, Omar asked me a question. So Omar is one question each. So if you got more than one question, pick the best one. Next is Hazard Woods says, what's your favorite computer game? I don't play any computer games, but when I was in maybe middle school, I used to play this game called Doom. I don't know if Doom is still out, but it was a game you could play on the computer and you use the keyboard to move around. And I used to spend hours playing that, but that was probably like 7th grade. I haven't played any type of computer games in a long time. Next, Mega Kicks 123. He says, I'm 5'9". All the teams I've played on have been small, and I will play forward. So I'm used to guarding kids who are taller than me. He moved, and now he's playing guard on the team. Are there any tips for making a smoother transition from these two positions? Okay, here's another one of those relative words. Mega Kicks 123. What do you mean by smoother? Smoother than what? What are you comparing it to? And the positions, again, don't matter. The name, whatever you want to call the position, doesn't matter. The question is, what skills do you need to have? That's the question you need to ask yourself. What skills do you feel you need based on the situation you're in? And once you can answer that question, then you already know what you need to work on, so you won't need any tips. So you just need to ask yourself a better question. Next is Tuna Sapitu. It says, last week I asked him a question of his coach not letting him shoot, and he said he was a 57% three-point shooter, and he says shooting wasn't important, just drive and keep on, because he keeps on shooting. The coach doesn't start him anymore. All right, so let me frame this a little bit better from the way he's saying it so everyone understands. Last week, Tuna, I don't know which way you pronounce his name, he said he shoots 57% on threes, but his coach told him to stop shooting threes. And then he asked me my opinion on that, and I told him to ask his coach What is the situation? Why not? Should he not shoot threes if his information was indeed accurate that he really was shooting 57%? So he came back this week, as I told him to talk to his coach and come back to me with what the coach said. He said the coach says shooting isn't important, he should just drive. But he didn't listen to the coach. He kept on shooting his three-pointers because he felt like that was the better decision, which was not the better decision. So the coach now doesn't start him anymore. He lost his place in the starting lineup. He doesn't give them any drills on shooting. So his question to me is, should he quit the team because he went from 23 points to 9 points per game? And please answer his question. All right, well, first of all, Tana and anyone else who posts a question here, this is the Q&A. So I take the questions and I answer them. So you don't need to put please answer my question. Actually, don't put that anywhere you ever ask me anything. Don't email me, Facebook me, tweet me, or YouTube comment me on any other video and say please answer, because that is really annoying. But since it's in the Q&A, I'm going to respond to this. But anywhere else, I would ignore your questions just for you putting that there. But anyway, because it sounds like you're begging, and you don't have to beg. If you have a question, you ask it. The person wants to answer it, they'll answer it. If they don't, they won't. That's just my personal thing. But anyway, should you quit the team because you went from 23 to 9 points? Well, it's not because you're on the team that you went from 23 to 9. You went from 23 to 9 because the coach told you to do something and you did the opposite. So that's why you got benched. And you probably already knew that was going to happen. So if you think you know the game better than the coach, or you don't like the coach, or you think it's just an unfixable situation, then go ahead, leave the team, go find another team to play for. And on that other team, you can prove to that coach that he was wrong, that he made a mistake. Now, if you don't have any other options, any other teams to go play for, then what you need to do is put your pride aside, or your whatever knowledge you feel you have, put that aside and do what the coach asks you to do. Because obviously, since you were shooting 57% on threes, according to your information, you are able to work on your threes and be good at it outside of whatever the team does. Since he doesn't do any drills for shooting, but you were shooting 57%, you got good at it somehow, so you don't need the coach to do drills. You can get better at it on your own. So when you get to your next destination, maybe that coach will shoot threes, maybe that coach will let you shoot threes, maybe that coach will do drills for shooting threes. But if you don't have any other choices of any other teams to play for and you quit this team, then what good are you doing yourself? What are you going to do next? Do you have a plan of action? So just quitting just because, just for emotional reasons, because you're mad at the coach or you don't like the coach, if there's nothing on the horizon that you're going to do next, then it'd probably be a bad decision. You'd be better off staying on the team, start doing what the coach has asked you to do, and maybe you can get back into his good graces. You can start starting again and you can bring your points up. So you had to figure out based on the situation, because I don't know all that stuff. And again, as I said in an earlier question, you don't have to keep coming back to me with more information. All you had to do is assess this yourself based on what I just told you, and then make the best decision for you, because ultimately it is not me who's going to make the call on what you do. So if you want me to decide whether you should quit or not, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to decide what you do. You need to decide what you do. What I'm going to do is give you the ingredients that you can put into the recipe, so to speak, so you can figure out, okay, let me look at point A, point B, point C, point D. Okay, once you put all these together, what is the smartest thing for you right now and the smartest thing for your future? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself and then take appropriate action. Next is Irving Fan 2563. Say he got cut from his basketball team a week ago, probably because he is too good. What should he do? I don't know, Irving. I think you need to come up with a better joke than that. Dem Rican Boys says, there any way on the net that we could see some of your old pictures when you were growing up playing basketball? If not, that could be a good look for your subscribers. Well, Dem Rican Boys, I'm sure you are probably younger than I am. Back when I was growing up in my teens, we didn't have cell phones on our hips or in our pockets, most of us, and we also, the phones we did have didn't take pictures. So we don't have as many pictures from back then as you have now. When you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you'll have a bunch of pictures of yourself when you were a teen. Well, we don't have pictures of ourselves when we were teens because it just wasn't as easy to take pictures back then as it is now. So if I had the pictures, then I'll post some somewhere, probably on my Facebook or Instagram. Facebook is /work on your game. Instagram is @Dre Baldwin, but those pictures don't exist. Next, Dylan Swartwood says, how do I jump higher? You go to dreallday.com/jump. You get the jump manual, then you email me that receipt. You get a free NBA signature workout program from hoophandbook.com. But you have to use that link that I just said, dreallday.com/jump. I'll put an annotation up here and it'll also be in the video description. Ayaz Aya says, whenever I work out on something other than basketball, I feel like I lose my jumper. My jump shot is good, but it doesn't feel right after I work out. How should I work out so my shot stays as good as always? Well, you should keep working out and work out more, because if working out makes you completely lose your jump shot, then you probably didn't have much of a jump shot to begin with. Next is J Smooth Lamar. Says, how do you defend on ball and not get beat with the first step? Well, that's a very loaded question, because when you're defending on ball, you're playing against a different offensive player almost every day. So it's not any one way that's guaranteed to work. And even if you play against the same guy every single day for the rest of your life, and I tell you a complete perfect way to stop what he did today, then he'll probably adjust and do something completely different tomorrow. So then you would need a complete new way to defend that, which means you can't go into something with this is exactly how it works. That's not how basketball goes. You have to react in the moment based on the situation. So the number one thing you can do is improve your abilities to defend, which means you can improve your quickness, you can improve your speed, you can improve your lateral movement, improve the way you stay light on your feet with drills, which improve your skill set, which is, again, you can take a look at the defensive hoop handbook at hoophandbook.com. Also has some defensive drills posted here on YouTube in a playlist called Defense. The other thing that you can do is play in more games so that you get actual game experience and experience in playing against offensive players, playing against different types of offensive players. And the more experience you have, the more references you'll have when you face another player. You can instinctively think, okay, I've seen that before, I've seen this before. Eventually you're going to come up with something you haven't seen, but once you see it, even if you get scored on, now you have that experience, now you've been through that. So basketball is an imperfect game, so there's no way that guarantees you'll never get beat off the dribble, because whoever your best player is, if you watch video of them, enough of it, you'll see them get beat off the dribble with the first step. Everybody gets beat. You play against players who are at your level or higher, even players who are below your level. Every once in a while, somebody's going to beat you off the dribble. Every once in a while, you'll get the ball stolen from you. You'll get blocked. You'll get scored on. Maybe even get dunked on. You'll lose a game. Basketball is not perfect, so you can't plan to not ever get scored on. That's not how the game works. Next is KB Titan. Says, I'm a beast now. Thank you so much. He says, isn't it funny how the account's named after NBA players ask you about problems, but in reality, NBA players wouldn't even say such a thing, LOL. Well, I haven't really thought about that, KB Titan, but I'm glad that your game has improved. Congratulations. Christian Stevens says, what do you do to get in the zone mentally or ready to play a game? Also, my dad and coach both say I could be a lot better if I was more aggressive on offense. What can I do to be more aggressive? Thanks. Keep the videos coming. Well, to get in the zone mentally, ready to play a game, I actually have a playlist of I got a playlist of music that I like to listen to before a game or during a workout, on and off the court workouts, that helps me get into a certain mental zone. And it's not about, because you might get in the mental zone in a workout, you can practice it. It helps you practice. The same way you practice, you go to a court and you work on your jump shot so that when you play in a game, your jump shot's good. The same thing, you practice the mental side. You practice getting yourself in the right zone mentally. Whatever works for you is not exactly the same for everyone, because we all are wired differently. We all have different mental triggers. Some people like to see something and it gets them going. Some people like to hear something. Some people like to feel something physically. Some people like to go to a certain place. Somebody might like to watch a video. Another person might need to talk to somebody. Another person might need to look at some pictures. So we all have different ways that we're wired, well, what works for us. So it is your job, you and all other players out there, to figure out what works for you to get you into that right zone. So it's not about what I do, it's about what you need to do. You need to figure out what that is, because that's very important. Once you're in that right mental zone, it unlocks all your physical capabilities. If you're not in the right mental zone, you won't be able to use the full potential of your capabilities, whatever those capabilities may be, that you developed in practice. So in order to unlock everything you developed in practice, you had to get into that right mental state, and you also have to have the experience to be able to call on those things instinctively without having to tell everybody, wait, stop, let me think about what to do before the game continues, because of course y'all know it doesn't work that way. As far as the question about, he said his coach and his dad told him he'd be better if he was more aggressive on offense. What are some ways he could be more aggressive? Well, Christian, if your coach and your dad told you that, wouldn't you think to ask them what do they mean? If you don't know what they mean, if somebody gives you a piece of information and you don't understand what they mean fully, ask them. Open your mouth and use your communication skills. I haven't seen you play. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your game is like, but your coach does and your dad does, and they're the ones who gave you that information. So ask them to clarify what they meant. Next, Chucky FE says, I've been playing in a rec league for a couple of years, and I'm mainly used as a wing spot-up shooter. He wants to expand his game with some dribble moves. He's an adequate dribbler. He can dribble between the legs when he practices by himself, and when it comes to a game, he can't bring himself to do anything but basically maintaining the simple dribble, and it doesn't allow him to get around defenders. And he says, is there a way of slowly incorporating dribble moves into games? Would an occasional dribble between the legs when I'm not being pressured on defense be recommended, or are there other ways to work these into the game? Well, Chucky FE, what you need to do is watch the video I referenced earlier titled How to Play Basketball as Good as You Practice Basketball, because I address the way that you're thinking right now is not going to work. The way that you're thinking, the questions that you're asking me is probably the same questions you're asking yourself. That's not going to get you where you want to go. So what you need to do is watch that video so that you understand how it works. So there's a certain recipe. When we're talking about a recipe, as I said, probably for the last few weeks, I've been listening to Tony Robbins a lot. He talks about recipes. So if I give you a recipe to bake a cake, I'm going to tell you all the ingredients that go into it. But if you put the ingredients together in the wrong order, even if you had a perfect ingredients, if you put them together in the wrong order, you're not going to get the right cake. So you had to not only have the right ingredients, you got to put them together in the right order, in the right way, and then you got to cook it on the right temperature for the right amount of time to get the perfect cake. So watch that video where I explain exactly what the ingredients are, how to put them together, how much heat to put in the oven, and how long to bake it for so you get the cake. Next, Derek Rose says, his name's Derek Rose, how do you handle ball hogs who are on your team? You don't handle other people, you only handle yourself. So instead of focusing on them, focus on your performance. Next is Onin Only says, how do I get ranked by ESPN basketball to be an All-American? If I accomplish this, I'll probably be the first player in my high school to accomplish this. Well, Onin, there's only one thing you need to do. You need to, well, two things actually. First, you need to develop the skills that would translate into a game where you would get that attention and recognition by ESPN. Then number two, you need to get into games and actually show those skills and perform at a high level. So that's what you need to do. And maybe after you do all that, maybe ESPN will rank you, but you don't control ESPN. So maybe you could score 100 points and they still might not rank you. You don't control that. So the only thing you control is your performance. So what you need to do is step your performance up. And when it's worthy of ESPN's attention, then you just might get it. And who knows, maybe you won't. But you don't control ESPN. So if you're basing your success or failure on what ESPN decides, then you're setting yourself up for failure, because you might get it and you might not, even if you feel like you deserve it. So focus on you and what you need to do, not ESPN. Julie MacArthur says, do coaches like centers who have poor low post skills but a good pick and roll skill as the roll man and good defense more than centers who have a poor defensive game and don't like to do pick and rolls but have a good low post game? Well, Julie, I don't think coaches walk into a gym thinking, all right, let me find a center who has poor low post skills but a good pick and roll game as a roll man and good defense, because I want them more than a center who has a poor defensive game and don't like to do pick and rolls but they have a good low post game. I don't think any coach in the world walks into a gym looking for one over the other. So what you need to do, Julie, is focus on, again, as I said probably 4 times already in this video, don't focus on what the coach is looking for. Focus on what you are capable of and do those things you're capable of. If you want to be capable of more things, then you already know what you need to do. You need to work on your game on your time, not in practice, not with the coach, not depending on anybody else. If you want to improve your skills, you work on your game, on your time, and then when it's time to perform, you go out there and show those skills when the person whom you want to impress, i.e. that coach, is watching. And if you need to work on translating your practice skills to game skills, I don't know if you do or if you don't, because you didn't mention, but if you do, that video I said, how to play basketball as good as you practice basketball. Check that out, and that can help you out even more. Next question. Damola Sani says, people tell me that I play too stiff. What does that mean? And what can I do to loosen up when I play basketball? All right, well, first of all, Damola, people tell you that you play too stiff, and he asked me, what does that mean? I don't know what it means, Damola, because I didn't tell you that you play too stiff. You said people tell you. So whoever these people are, quote unquote, if somebody tells you something and you don't know what it means, then use your communication skills and ask them for clarification. What does that mean? Earlier, someone asked, they said, my coach and my dad told me I need to play more aggressive. What does that mean? Ask them. Open your mouth. You obviously know how to ask questions. You know how to read and write. You know how to talk, because you're posting questions here. So the same questions you're asking me, you're asking me to explain what somebody else said to you. I didn't say it. So if I tell you something, I'll tell you what it means in a way that you'll understand it. Now, if someone else tells you something and you don't understand it, then it is your responsibility, not mine, not theirs, to make sure you understand what it is they're saying. If in fact you care about what they're saying. But if you're asking me, then obviously you care. Why you care is not my concern, but since you care, why don't you go get clarification from that person on exactly what it is they're talking about. And his second question is, what can he do to loosen up when he plays basketball? Well, that question is not even relevant, because until you decide whether or not the first statement matters, then the second one might not even matter. Because if you don't think you play stiff, and since you don't know what it means, so we can't even get to that yet, if you end up thinking, once you figure out what those people meant, if you don't like what they said and you decide to disregard those comments, then the second question doesn't matter. And if the comments do matter and you feel like they are valid, then you already know what to do. You want to do the opposite. So then you just do the opposite of whatever they explain to you. And I think you pretty much already know what it means. Since you already put the word loose, that you already know that loose is the opposite of stiff. So I think you already know the answer to your own question. So whether or not that matters to you, you answer that. And then whether or not you need to fix it, you answer that too. And then once you answer both of those questions, you take the appropriate action. Next is Yellnats1234. Says, there a reason why you don't want to be a coach, and plus who you got in the dunk contest? The reason why I don't want to be a coach is the same reason you probably don't want to be an R&B singer or a construction worker. You just don't want to. And who I got in the dunk contest, I don't know. He asked me when it gets closer to All-Star Weekend. Probably on Twitter, the night of the contest. I wouldn't be thinking about it before then. David Martinez says, do you think players like Jamal, Crawford, and Nick Young get fouled a lot shooting threes because they use the sweep and sway? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're the only two players in the world who use the sweep and sway. It just so happens that they get fouled a lot. I don't even know what you mean by a lot, because that's another relative term. A lot could be once for somebody, and a lot for somebody else might mean 30 times. And so I don't even know what the stats are on that, getting fouled shooting three-pointers. I don't know if they're even the top two guys. It might be because they get the attention, but there might be other people who get fouled just as much, if not more, shooting three-pointers. So you're making a couple assumptions here. I don't know if you've actually looked at the stats. And ostensibly in the end, who cares? It doesn't really matter. But as far as the sweep and sway question, the answer is no, because they're not the only people in the world using the sweep and sway. Next is Robert Reeves says, what are great cardio workouts for basketball? Well, here's another relative word, great. What do you consider to be great, Robert? But I can give you an answer. What are cardio workouts for basketball? We take the word great out. Well, in my opinion, is great. It's the Cardio Hoop Handbook at hoophandbook.com. Awesome Kid 305 says, he's been doing my daily dribbling drills every day, along with some other stationary drills and some shooting drills and some layup drills every day for 6 months, because he just started playing basketball at the YMCA. He's not a starter. No, he is a starter, but he's not too proud about that because his team isn't very good. He can dribble when he's not moving a lot, but once he starts moving, he can dribble. He misses shots, he misses layups all the time. He's in the 8th grade, he's on his way to high school, and he's trying to catch up with all the other players in his grade. because basketball is his dream, but he's getting really frustrated because it seems like he's not getting any progress. Have I ever felt like this when I started playing? No, I didn't feel like that when I started playing. Awesome Kid 305, because let me explain to you why. You've been playing basketball. He says he's been playing basketball every day, practicing for 6 months. And he just started playing organized basketball. So I don't know how long you've been actually playing basketball in general, but organized, you've been playing for 6 months. 6 months is not a long time to be playing basketball. 6 months is not, if you're telling me you've been playing for 6 months as like as credibility for your work ethic or credibility for your experience, that's nothing. Try 6 years or 10 years or 15 years. You have to put years into this game, not months. So 6 months in and you can't really do things in games yet, that's pretty much about right, because you're going to need to play a whole lot more games for a whole lot more months before you start to equal or surpass those other players, because those other players may have been playing basketball longer than you. They may have a whole lot more organized game experience than you. When I first started playing, let's say 6 months into playing, from when I first played organized basketball, 6 months in, I wasn't really doing much in the games. I was practicing a lot all the time. Maybe similar to what you were doing. I don't know how much, how long, how many hours, and none of that shit. Who cares? But I wasn't performing much in the games because I didn't have much game experience. And the players who were my age, who had more game experience, were performing better in the games than me. And maybe if I was looking at what they were, how much they were practicing, I might have been practicing more than them. But I was still way behind. I had to catch up. I had to close the gap, and that took years. That didn't take months. It didn't take days or hours. It took years. So you just need to keep playing. Don't quit. If you say playing basketball is your dream, then keep playing basketball. That's the only thing you need to do. Keep showing up every single day. That persistence, that desire, that discipline of showing up every day, that is a skill. So if you can hone that skill and just keep showing up every day and working to the fullest and putting your full effort into it, that skill will get you past 98% of other players. And the only thing that's going to catch you up to that last 2% is actual talent and physical playing ability. But you might not even need to worry about that. Worry about passing that 98% first by showing up every single day. Let's go for 5 years. Let's say you do it for 5 years, and once you reach 5 years, if you're still not getting any better and you still can't do a dribble move or make a layup in a game, come back to the Q&A, let me know, and then we'll figure out what your problem is. Next question, final question. Dmitry Tukovic says, I've been having problems with my fundamental skills as I've been caught up on trying to improve my speed, my crossovers, and my finishing moves. I don't remember when's the last time I practiced anything else. Could I recommend him some handbooks that will help him with his fundamentals? Yes, all the skill programs on hoophandbook.com, i.e. everything other than the NBA signature workouts will help you with your fundamentals. That is it, everybody. Thank you for the questions. This week's Q&A's questions are pretty good. Y'all coming with good, thoughtful questions. Just remember, we do one question per person. So if you post one question and you come up with a better one, you better pick one, because I'm only going to answer the first one I see. Anybody got any questions about skill development? You want to work on your fundamentals, you want to add certain skills to your game, I got over 4,000 videos here on this channel. It's going to be 5,000 probably by the end of this year. Hoophandbook.com is where all your workout needs are covered. That's on the court development, off the court development. You can get any gear you like this shirt at WOYG, standing for workonyourgame.net. Of course, my website, dreallday.com, is a resource for any and all questions about basketball. Anything I haven't done on video, I've done in writing. That is at my website, dreallday.com. Y'all can find me Twitter, Dre All Day, Instagram at Dre Baldwin, Facebook /workonyourgame. And we'll end it the same way we started it. This is Dre Baldwin, dreallday.com. Work on your game. Next week, Q&A. Thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you follow all my top content up here. Follow me on all your favorite social networks right over here. And make sure you are subscribed to catch all the new content I put on this channel every single day. Work on your game.